Hello, and welcome to MRA's 5-Minute HR Feed, the podcast where we share quick and practical information. In the time it takes you to go grab a cup of coffee, you'll gain insights into hot topics and pressing HR issues. I'm your host, Nicole Morehouse, and we're glad you're listening. Before we start, here's our usual disclaimer that the information being shared is not and should not be considered legal advice. Now let's dive into our topic.
For those of you who joined us for our recent employment law update, the ELU, as we like to call it internally, thank you. This event is all about you, and it's truly unlike any other event because of your participation. Today's podcast serves as a post-event wrap-up. And if you couldn't attend the ELU, today's podcast will hopefully give you a few valuable takeaways and insights from the event. We learned that in 2026, it isn't about new laws as much as it is about heightened enforcement, overlapping requirements, and operational risk. The organizations that stay ahead will be the ones that tighten their processes versus simply updating existing policies. So let's cover a few highlights from the ELU. Sessions on the FMLA, the ADA, the Pregnant Worker Fairness Act, and other related leave laws reinforced a clear message. These laws no longer operate in silos. Employers are expected to layer obligations correctly and consistently. Some things that employers could do in 2026 include auditing your leave processes end to end. Look at your intake, your certification process, how you track leave, your return to work process. From start to finish, look at it all. Train managers to stop making eligibility decisions. Get your managers to route things through HR so that the appropriate process can be followed. Look at reviewing accommodation language that you use to ensure that obligations are explicitly addressed and not just implied. The Fair Labor Standards Act and wage and hour-focused event sessions emphasize that good intentions don't protect you as an employer. Adherence to laws, documentation, and consistency, those things might protect you. Regulators continue to scrutinize independent contractor status, exemption status, misclassifications, and other pay practice problems. So in 2026, make a review of those exempt and independent contractor classifications. Do a review, determine if they actually qualify to be exempt or independent contractors. Audit for any recurring payroll issues. You should be auditing for any payroll issue, but if you have recurring issues with things like unfair rounding, missed paid overtime, and not paying for time worked just because it's off the clock, and those things are not caught, those are very prone to scrutiny. Make audits a recurring routine, not just a one-time fix. So get a pattern of recurring audits on the schedule. Speakers at this year's event highlighted how weak documentation and rush terminations continue to drive litigation risk, especially when performance issues intersect with activity that might be protected under the National Labor Relations Act. So in 2026, consider refreshing performance documentation templates, get some clear expectations and timelines embedded within those. Coach leaders on how to document behavior and expected outcomes. Get leaders to focus on facts versus fiction or opinions, and do some pressure testing on termination decisions to ensure good, sound legal basis and consistency before making any final approvals. Compliance around background checks and hiring decisions remain an enforcement priority, especially when processes can vary by role or location and maybe don't adhere to federal and local laws on the use of arrest and conviction records. So in 2026, audit your processes for reviewing background checks and using them for employment decisions. Be certain on what information can and cannot be used in making decisions, and confirm that your adverse action processes are followed every time. State-specific updates for Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin reinforce that multi-state compliance risks continue to grow, even when federal laws remain relatively stable. In 2026, maybe consider having a location-specific compliance tracker for all local requirements where you have employees. Avoid a one-size-fits-all philosophy for your handbook language. Local laws are going to differ. And make sure to schedule, dare I say, mid-year compliance check-ins. Annual updates, that's a pretty daunting task, but annual updates are always recommended. And now we've moved to really looking at things mid-year, doing some mid-year checks to make sure that you are in compliance with all local laws. Worksite readiness and immigration compliance sessions underscored increased enforcement and the importance of clean records and consistent practices. In 2026, make sure you're conducting internal I-9 audits and using a consistent correction method in accordance with instructions from the USCIS. Make sure to locate that M274 manual on the USCIS's website. It is extremely helpful. Confirm that your remote verification practices meet current requirements, and prepare your organization for what to do and not to do during an audit or an inspection. Lastly, sessions addressing workplace conduct and power dynamics highlighted that legal risk and culture risk are deeply connected. Policies alone don't prevent problems, as we know. In 2026, look at reinforcing your reporting channels. Retrain leaders on appropriate work-associated conduct in today's evolving environment, and make sure to address issues early before they escalate into formal complaints. The biggest takeaway from MRA's 2026 Employment Law Update, or ELU, is this. Compliance in 2026 is about execution. Clear processes, strong documentation, and well-trained employees and leaders are your best risk management tools. HR teams that focus on consistency and preparedness now will save time, cost, and disruption later in the year. With that, I want to thank you for joining us today. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to MRA's 5-Minute HR Feed. Be sure to follow and connect with us for more podcasts and updates. If you're a member and have questions, you can always connect with MRA's 24/7 HR hotline by emailing infonow@mranet.org or by calling 866-474-6854.